Hi, this is John Hand, and the Pulsing Cinema movie of the day is John Carpenter's 1978 Halloween. The original, the classic. Halloween seems to be a much older film in my mind. I imagined it as a much older film because it just feels like it's always been with us. It feels like that is the film of modern horror. But I mean, it was 1978, and then the years of 79 and 80, it was just an explosion of horror from all kinds of different directors, from all different angles. But the catalyst for the modern horror era, the modern slasher horror movie era, before Friday the 13th, before the rest, there was this film, Halloween. And every time I watch Halloween, it grows in stature in my mind. It grows in greatness. I love the austerity of it, just the spookiness of it, the performance. The shape, the character of this shape, who is this kind of formless humanoid embodiment of evil. Before it was Michael Myers, and there was this whole family tree of Michael Myers trying to kill his sister and his cousin and his first brother's sister's cousin, uncle, and all of this thing, Michael Myers became like a genealogy buff, and he's being, influenced by this cult, and people wearing boots and running around and rune stones. Before all of that shit, there was just, Haddonfield. There was a quiet, sleepy little town at All Hallows Eve in the middle of the night. A bunch of teenagers babysitting, doing things in their life. Just this tiny little town, middle of America. And into this town, there is injected this disease, this virus, this boogeyman, and that's what the original conception of the John Carpenter Halloween was, just this boogeyman. A film which inspired everybody, but I mean, of course, you could say that Halloween wasn't the original. It was the plot strands of Halloween had been done before, right? There was the Peter Collinson film Fright from 1971, starring Susan George, a babysitter in a house who's been terrorized by a serial killer who breaks out of the mental hospital, right? Then there's Black Christmas, about a serial killer stalking a sorority at Christmas time, and the opening of Black Christmas with that POV camera climbing up the sorority building. Quite an incredible shot. Even to this day, you're like, what the hell did this guy strap a camera to his back? And do pretty much that's what they did. But yeah, bravura camera shot. There's some great, Steadicam, Panaglide stuff in Halloween, but come on, Black Christmas. So, and then he had a couple of other films, and the whole idea of babysitter murders and, the kind of spooky stories that babysitters would tell their children at night, and all of this stuff. So that was all in the air, and that was all, pre-Halloween. But there was something about the vision of John Carpenter which was undeniable, that the cinematic vision of John Carpenter, to take all of that early stuff and to put the Halloween moniker on it. It was a masterstroke of filmmaking and marketing and everything kind of colliding at the same. It feels inevitable. It feels that if John Carpenter had not made Halloween, there would have been someone else who would have made Halloween. There would have been some. It's almost like the Beatles, or if Lennon and McCartney had not gotten together, that there somehow that music just was waiting out in the big abyss, in the ether, to just kind of be born, and to come out. And somehow, even if John Carpenter never, there must have been a John Carpenter. It was a movie that was just in the right place in the right time, and was just burst full formed and made someone's career and made many people's career, and you just think about all the decisions made along the way. The guy Tommy Lee Wallace, who was John Carpenter's friend, who worked on the film, who edited the film, and all of the choices that he had as far as the mask, because originally he gave John Carpenter a lot of options. There was a clown mask, there was another mask, and then there was this William Shatner mask that he had changed and made into this kind of formless shape that we see today, and I think that was always the vision of John Carpenter, that this thing just be, that you don't see his eyes, and most of the film, you see it for a few scenes. The mainly time you see his eyes is when they do the unmask at the end with Tony Moran, and he shows up for a few moments. But for most of the film, it's just these black eye holes in the dark. In the later films, and really starting in Halloween 2, you really start seeing Michael Myers' eyes, which really weakens the character, weakens this kind of formless shape thing. But you had to, I can understand that, because with 2 and beyond, again, the cat's out of the bag. You see, in this film, Michael Myers is far more of a force. It's far more of just an entity that just kind of this malevolent entity that is always on the periphery. And he's much more in the shadows and much more kind of in the background, and it makes it far more scarier. And where do you go from that? Of course, you've got to bring him out into the open, and then what does familiarity breed? Contempt. And so, by the time 4 and 5, and you see more and more of Michael Myers, and then Michael Myers really, it didn't have that continuity of a Freddy Krueger, where the same actor is playing the character throughout all these films. With Michael Myers, it was pretty much in every film somebody else, some stuntman or some person, and they all kind of slightly look different. Some of them weigh a little bit more, some of them are obviously a little bit taller than the others, and there's always this kind of disconnection with the original. I love Nick Castle's performance in the original film as the Michael. There's that scene with Tommy with when the pumpkin smashes, and he's walking along the chain link fence, and he seems to be gliding like he's on a cushion of air. The character Michael Myers. It's such a spooky scene, and you get so much. You understand the character and his kind of out there state of mind in those little moments of performance, and that little body language from Nick Castle. Then a dozen pages of dialogue. It's just all there, And then Donald Pleasance as Sam Loomis. I couldn't imagine the original choice, which I think was Christopher Lee, in that role. I mean, it just seems like Donald Pleasance. It was at the right time for him in the right area, and it really, I'm sure it changed his life, changed his career. A career-defining role again. From an actor who had done so much, performance in classic Hollywood film and had so many different diverse roles, and I always think of him in THX 1138, but as Sam Loomis, he was just such a powerful character, and he almost speaks for Michael Myers, and he tells us that, hey, this guy is really the real deal. This is almost not a man. He's almost something more. And that started getting kind of comical and ridiculous in part 2. In the original, just the moments you get with Sam Loomis where it's more subdued, it makes a lot more sense. Yeah, by the time of 4 and 5, where he's just off the chain, and then part 6, that the final peak we get at Sam Loomis, Donald Pleasance's last Halloween film, which is kind of sad. But there are some moments in part 6 where I think his performance is quite good. But yeah, it's very, very uneven, and I think there was probably some medical issues that were influencing the uneven nature of that performance. Oh my God, I can't. And then the soundtrack. I mean, the this kind of gothic horror synthesizer soundtrack. We've been chasing the magic of that soundtrack for so many years, and even Carpenter himself and his collaborator Alan Howarth. I don't think Alan Howarth worked on this film. There was some other person he'd worked on it in a Halloween and Escape from New York. But the archetypal horror film score, really. I mean, there is that orchestral type of soundtrack, the big, scary, but something about Halloween that's just so spare and so, again, austere and scary and spooky. So, Halloween, for my money, it's not. I don't think about the whole Laurie Strode, Michael Myers family tree, whatever, all of that bullshit. I don't care. For me, the film works best as a standalone work, just as here it is. Here is this small town, and we have this boogeyman who's stalking. Oh my God, Halloween, great movie.